Most people spend their lives searching for happiness. But what if you wanted the opposite? What if, instead of thriving, you wanted to ensure your own misery? It turns out, misery isn't something that happens by chance. It's a skill, a mindset, and a set of habits that almost guarantee a life of suffering. And the truth is, many people practice this skill without even realizing it. Today, we'll explore how to be utterly miserable by breaking the core principles of Stoicism. If you recognize any of these in your life, maybe it's time for a change. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to help our journey grow. And make sure to watch until the end, because the last point is the ultimate key to guaranteed misery. Number 1, overvalue things you can't control. The fastest way to be miserable is to obsess over things completely beyond your control. Worry about the economy, get angry at the weather, and stress about other people's opinions. The Stoics believe that true peace comes from focusing only on what you can influence: your thoughts, your actions, and your reactions. But if you want to be miserable, ignore that advice. For example, imagine someone stuck in traffic. A Stoic would accept the delay and maybe use the time to listen to an audiobook or reflect. But if you want misery, rage against the situation. Curse the other drivers, honk your horn, and let the stress eat at you. The more powerless you feel, the worse you'll be. This same principle applies to relationships. If you want to suffer, base your self-worth entirely on what others think of you. Live for validation, crave approval, and be devastated when someone criticizes you. The more you let external factors dictate your emotions, the deeper your misery will be. The truth is, life will never stop presenting uncontrollable situations. But if you insist on resisting reality instead of accepting it, you'll never know peace. That's how you guarantee a life filled with frustration. Number 2, compare yourself to everyone else. One of the easiest ways to destroy your own happiness is to constantly compare your life to others. Look at social media and feel like you're falling behind. Compare your wealth, looks, and achievements with everyone around you. The Stoics warned against this trap, but if you want to be miserable, embrace it fully. Imagine a young man who works hard, but never feels satisfied because he's always measuring himself against someone richer. Instead of focusing on his own progress, he fixates on what he lacks. Even if he earns more, buys a bigger house, or gets in better shape, it will never be enough. There will always be someone who has more. Social media makes this even worse. People only post their highlights, their best moments, their victories. But if you forget that and take everything at face value, you'll feel like your life is inadequate. You'll start believing you're the only one struggling, even though everyone else is just as human as you. Comparing yourself to others is the perfect way to poison your own happiness. You'll never appreciate what you have because you're too focused on what you don't. And the more you chase after someone else's life, the less you'll enjoy your own. Number 3, avoid responsibility for your own life. If you truly want to be miserable, blame everyone else for your problems. Never take responsibility for your actions, and always find an excuse for why things aren't your fault. The Stoics taught that we are responsible for our own thoughts and choices, but misery comes from rejecting this idea entirely. Think about someone who always blames bad luck, the government, or their upbringing for why they aren't successful. Instead of looking for ways to improve, they stay stuck in victimhood. They see every obstacle as proof that life is unfair, rather than a challenge to overcome. This mindset guarantees stagnation, because if everything is someone else's fault, then there's no reason to change. Another way to embrace misery is to avoid discipline and self-control. Eat whatever you want, procrastinate on important tasks, and let your emotions dictate your decisions. The Stoics believe that discipline leads to freedom, but if you want to be miserable, embrace impulsiveness instead. At the end of the day, happiness requires effort. But if you want to be miserable, just keep making excuses. The less responsibility you take, the worse your life will become. Number 4, dwell on the past and fear the future. One of the best ways to ruin your own peace is to live anywhere but the present. Regret your past mistakes. Replay every failure in your head and let guilt consume you. At the same time, obsess over the future. Imagine everything that could go wrong, worry about disasters that may never happen, and let anxiety take over. The Stoics believe that suffering comes from attachment to what was and fear of what might be. They encourage people to focus on the present moment. But if you want misery, do the opposite. Live in your head, stay trapped in what-ifs, and let time slip through your fingers. Consider someone who made a mistake years ago but refuses to forgive themselves. Instead of learning and moving forward, they let the past define them. They carry shame everywhere they go, even though nothing can change what happened. On the other hand, someone afraid of the future avoids risks and opportunities because they imagine only the worst outcomes. In both cases, life becomes a prison. When you waste your time clinging to the past or fearing the future, you miss out on the only thing that truly exists, the present. And there's no better way to guarantee a life of misery than by never actually living it. Number 5, expect life to be fair. Finally, if you truly want to be miserable, believe that life should be fair. Expect rewards just because you worked hard. Assume that good people never suffer and bad people always get punished. The Stoics, however, saw life for what it is: unpredictable, indifferent, and often unfair. Many people make themselves miserable by refusing to accept reality. They become bitter when things don't go their way, and they waste energy complaining instead of adapting. A man might work tirelessly at his job, expecting recognition, but if it doesn't come, he feels betrayed. Instead of moving forward, he drowns in resentment. The truth is, life is not a balanced equation. People get sick, accidents happen, and bad people sometimes succeed. If you expect fairness, you'll constantly be disappointed. The Stoics believe that true strength comes from adapting to reality, not wishing it were different. If you want to guarantee your own suffering, fight against the nature of life itself. Insist that things should always go your way. Be outraged when they don't. And in doing so, you'll ensure that you never know peace. Number 6, seek pleasure over meaning. If you want to be miserable, chase momentary pleasure at the cost of long-term fulfillment. Ignore the Stoic idea that true happiness comes from meaning and purpose. Just do whatever feels good in the moment. Eat junk food, binge watch TV for hours, and avoid anything that requires effort or discipline. A great way to embrace this mindset is to constantly escape discomfort. The Stoics believe that struggle and hardship build character, but if you want to suffer, avoid all challenges. If a goal requires patience or sacrifice, give up. If a situation makes you uncomfortable, distract yourself with entertainment. Never sit in silence. Never reflect on your thoughts. Just fill every moment with stimulation. Take the example of someone who constantly seeks external pleasures, whether it's food, alcohol, or social media validation. They might feel good for a few moments, but deep down, they're never truly satisfied. That's because real happiness doesn't come from indulgence. It comes from discipline, self-respect, and a sense of progress. But if you want to be miserable, ignore all of that. Just keep chasing pleasure and wonder why you still feel empty. Number 7, surround yourself with negative people. Want to make your misery even worse? Fill your life with toxic, pessimistic people. Surround yourself with complainers, victims, and those who never take action. Absorb their negativity. Let their mindset influence yours, and watch as your energy drains away. The Stoics believe that our environment shapes our character. Spend time with wise, disciplined people, and you'll adopt their habits. But spend time with bitter, resentful people, and their misery will become your own. Misery loves company, after all. Imagine someone who constantly listens to negativity, whether it's through their social circle, the news, or even their own internal dialogue. Over time, their perspective on life darkens. They start to see problems everywhere. They feel powerless. Even when good things happen, they find a way to complain. A Stoic would distance themselves from such influences, but if you want to be miserable, embrace them instead. Let their negativity consume you. Believe that their mindset is reality, and slowly, your own happiness will erode. Number 8, let emotions control you. One of the most powerful ways to guarantee misery is to let your emotions dictate your actions. If you feel angry, lash out. If you feel sad, sink into despair. Never question your feelings. Just react impulsively and let them control your life. The Stoics taught that emotions are natural but should not dominate us. They believed in emotional discipline, in stepping back and analyzing feelings before acting. But if you want to be miserable, reject this idea. Be a slave to your mood. For example, picture someone who gets offended at everything. Every minor inconvenience becomes a personal attack. If someone disagrees with them, they take it as an insult. Their emotions dictate their entire worldview, making life feel like a constant battle. This is the perfect recipe for suffering. When you let emotions control you, you become unpredictable, unstable, and exhausted. Instead of responding with wisdom, you react with chaos. And in doing so, you make your own life harder than it needs to be. Number 9, avoid growth and self-reflection. If you want to ensure lifelong misery, never question yourself. Never ask, what could I do better? Or how can I grow? Instead, assume that your way of thinking is always right. Stay the same year after year and resist any opportunity for self-improvement. The Stoics emphasize self-reflection as a daily practice. They believe that examining our actions, thoughts, and beliefs was essential for growth. But if you prefer misery, skip this entirely. Ignore your flaws. Blame others. Convince yourself that change is impossible. Imagine a person who refuses to acknowledge their mistakes. They repeat the same toxic habits, but instead of learning, they blame circumstances. They never take the time to sit in silence, to think deeply, or to question their own assumptions. As a result, they stagnate, watching life pass them by while feeling bitter and resentful. If you never reflect, you never grow. And if you never grow, you never truly live. But if misery is your goal, avoiding growth is the perfect way to get there. Number 10, leave without gratitude. Finally, the most surefire way to be miserable is to never appreciate what you have. Always focus on what's missing. Always desire more. Ignore the fact that, right now, you already have things that many people dream of. The Stoics believed that gratitude was the key to contentment. They practiced negative visualization, imagining life without the things they took for granted to remind themselves of their blessings. But if you want to suffer, do the opposite. Take a moment to think about your life. Right now, you likely have access to food, shelter, and some level of comfort. You might have friends, family, or even small daily joys. But instead of appreciating any of that, convince yourself it's not enough. Focus only on what's lacking. Look at a person who constantly complains. No matter what they achieve, it's never satisfying. They could have a loving partner, but they focus on their flaws. They could have a steady job, but they envy someone else's success. Their life could be full of small joys, but they're too blind to see them. Living without gratitude guarantees misery, because it turns abundance into scarcity. It makes every gift feel like a burden, and it ensures that no matter how much you have, it will never be enough. Misery isn't an accident, it's a practice. Overvalue what you can't control. Compare yourself to others. Blame the world for your problems. Dwell on the past. Fear the future, and expect life to be fair. Surround yourself with negativity. Let emotions control you. Avoid growth. Seek only pleasure and never appreciate what you have. The question is, how many of these habits do you recognize in your own life? And more importantly, are you willing to change them? If you found this video insightful, make sure to like and subscribe to support our journey. And let me know in the comments, Which of these habits have you seen in yourself or others? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.